Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle Ellicott. Welcome back to another edition of DCTV. We are excited. Why? Because we have yet another double episode feature for you today. This has been happening every single day this week, and we've got so much content to give you and brought investors from all areas of the world to talk about these different industries and technologies that are changing so incredibly rapidly. We talked a little bit yesterday around fintech and blockchain. A lot is happening in those spaces, and we covered all of the gaps and in between and where things are or where things are not going. But today we're taking things in a different direction. In some cases, we're going a layer deeper, believe it or not. We're going to talk a little bit today's episode around computers, software, and don't you worry, electronics. We might be getting a little into microprocessors. We might be getting into motherboards. We might be getting into all of the software that is powering this, including maybe a little quantum. Maybe we will enter the quantum realm. We'll see. Nonetheless, we're going to get to the guts of all that we use and those computers and those electronics and the software that helps power and drive them, things that we don't think about every day. So we brought some of the greatest investors in the world to talk about that today at all levels, hardware, software, and infrastructure in between. And we're going to unpack that. Now, to you, our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it and love having you. At any time, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to drop them in the chat box. Elena and I will do our best to ask them in real time. If not, we're always available 24/7, 365 online, and be happy to continue the conversations as we got some exciting things to cover and announcements today. To the investors out there, guess what? You can be on this stage as well. Elena, myself, and the LA Token team would love to have you. Feel free to reach out. Let us know where you would like to share your insights and expertise, topics, regions, and the like. And we'd love to bring you on a show. And entrepreneurs, this is not just a show for investors. This is a show for you too. There is a virtual stage awaiting you and your chance to get up and pitch us as investors live with feedback and also maybe an opportunity for more, and to the full audience tuning in. So please do reach out. We'd love to have either side you join us. So Elena, myself, and the entire LA Token team are available to hear from you. And with that being said, a big thank you to Elena and to the entire LA Token team, as always, every day for helping to bring VCTV possible to your screen, to your device, anywhere in the world that you may be watching. With that, let's go ahead and dive in. We've got an exciting cast with us today. I'm going to start with Adrian and then Gary and Nicole. I'm coming to you last. I know you've got exciting special announcements. So Adrian, you know how it works, but welcome back. It's been a pleasure to see you and chat a little bit pre-show, little intro, a little background on yourself for the audience.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you very much to LA Token for the invitation. Thank you, Elena. Thank you to the guests and also to the people tuning in. My name is Adrian Niculescu, and as a Gemini, I wear a few hats. One of them is I'm involved with the venture capital company Saga Global Ventures. I'm regional director in UK and Romania for Faster Capital, CMO EMEA for CloudCoin Consortium, and a mentor in Virgin Startups program. And as we've discussed earlier, I'm in a music studio right now, and I'm amazed about, because we'll talk about software, how much of the music today is done only through software. You need a computer, you need a sound card, maybe a keyboard, and everything else is software. I'm very happy to be here.
I love it. It brings back so many great memories of my very first computer and being able to build it, put it together, all the guts, looking at these things and then hitting the power button and seeing the blue screen to death and it not actually working. Thinking to myself, oh, this was all supposed to be plug and play, wasn't it? No, there's these small details that you have to pay attention to. Great lesson learned as a youngin. Gary Fowler, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great to see you today. My hero.
Oh, that's too kind.
That's the grandmaster of moderation. The wizard.
I'm gonna save my. I got. Wizard of Tech. I'll take that one. I need that one on a T-shirt. That's perfect. Mr. Fowler, a little intro, a little background.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Gary Fowler. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 15 companies. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold last August for $1.35 billion to Salesforce. I also am the co-founder of Viva, which is near unicorn status. It's an AI company I founded with a billionaire from Russia, David Yang. And today I've co-founded GSD Venture Studios. I'm the CEO of it. It's Get Shit Done Venture Studios. And we curate the most extraordinary AI companies from around the world and take them to Silicon Valley, using it as a port to the rest of the world. Since there's half the money in the world is located there looking for incredible investments. I love artificial intelligence. And I'm writing articles literally today. My next article is on the transportability of AI models across multiple vertical markets. And I just wrote one in Forbes on deep learning versus machine learning. So love this stuff. And I've written 64 articles on AI in the last year and pumping a couple out a week now. So that's what I do. I got my own show in Silicon Valley. It's called Gary's Picks. So I'm interviewing the top startups from around the world. And I also have my show, GSD AI and Venture Studios. And I have upcoming, actually, Kyle, you're one of our guests, and Guy Kawasaki is coming up in a few weeks. So stay tuned. So that's it. Thank you very much, Kyle.
Well, thank you. I'm excited and very honored to be a guest. Though the next person we're going to introduce should be added to that roster. She is a rock star in her own respect and just dropped some major news. I'm teeing this up for you, Nicole. Welcome back to the show. It's been a minute, but you've been incredibly busy for an amazing, amazing cause and also a new fund, which I'll just leave there and I will let you give your introduction and background because it's too exciting.
Thank you so much, Kyle. It's really nice to be here today, and thanks again for welcoming me back. Yeah, well, as Adrian mentioned, he wears many hats, but I do literally and figuratively. I am the founder of a branding and go-to-market strategy consulting firm called Outfront Solutions. But the hat that Kyle is speaking about today is that I am an advisor and LP to a fund called How Women Invest. And we were able to just announce that fund last week. And the fund is really focused on kind of disrupting the antiquated and unequal landscape of investing in women, right? That we have formed this fund out of a sister organization called How Women Lead. And How Women Lead has 13,000 women who are a part of it. And we went about raising this fund for How Women Invest just right when the pandemic started. Actually, a number of us who were part of the advisory team and the GPs all went on a leadership retreat actually in Cuba in March and came back and the world shut down. And that was when we were planning on starting and to raise the fund. However, and we took a pause. We thought, you know what, maybe it's going to be tone deaf to bring this, fund out and start to talk to LPs. But it actually had the opposite effect. I would say that the community stood forward together. And just last week, we announced a $5 million first close of our $10 million fund. And we did a $10 million fund for a very specific reason, and that is because of the Jobs Act, we can take on 249 investors. And bringing on 249 LPs for most people would be a little bit of a nightmare. For us, it's providing access. And that's what's really beautiful about it. But I would say the most important thing in my mind about this new fund is that it is predominantly by and for women of color. So we have a majority of our investors in the fund are women of color, which is really amazing and just basic, as it should be. We should be reflecting the population. And, there's just such a chasm of investing in women, and that's even exacerbated by investing in women of color. So we aim to change all of that and disrupt it. So yeah, it's really exciting to have this fund, out there in the world. We've been in deep due diligence on a good number of companies, and we welcome taking a look at companies that are in that late seed stage to A, that have some revenue traction, and that have, a technology focus to their startup. Yeah, it's really, it's remarkable how people stood forward together in community to make this fund happen. And, a fund is just like a startup. And so in 4 months, we formed it, and we're funded, and we're off and running. And this is just the beginning. When we stand together, it's really a powerful force. And I just want to also highlight the fact that, research shows that investing in diversity actually provides higher returns. And so, we should keep this in mind. There are all kinds of statistics that back that up. Things like, female founders generated 78 cents of revenue for every dollar, whereas male startups produce 31 cents to the dollar. That was a Boston Consulting Group study. I could go on, but it's just investing in women, investing in diversity is good business. And yeah, we're here to do more of it.
Heck yeah, I'm loving it. So a huge congratulations to you, Nicole, and to our audience. I wanted to make sure Nicole got a chance to share that with you, because if you are out there and you are looking to fundraise, as we do share here on VCTV, we all are accessible and would love to hear your pitches, and also you hear more about your companies and see if we can move that conversation forward. But when we have a new fund, as Gary has mentioned in the past on his, and now Nicole and Adrian as well, like, it's good for you to hear these things and also see how accessible and how real investors are and how willing they are to talk. And we're all human. So definitely reach out, and love to chat more. And can't wait to have Nicole back in a few months after they've made tons of great investments, and she can share more with us about those. But let's dive in, because now we've got a ton more to talk about. And Nicole, and everyone's kind of teed us up already around this, is, we're talking about the guts. We're talking about the insides. We're looking at computers. We're looking at electronics. Like I said, we're talking a little bit about the quantum side of the world, or the quantum computing and mechanics that we've been so teased about over the past, really since 2020. It's been probably one of the biggest teasers around new technologies forthcoming. And I know AI is playing an enormous role in that as well, Gary. And so I'm going to start with you, Gary, and would love to just kind of hear your thoughts on the current state and what you're seeing happening in these areas, whether that's from the hard, the software side, or the infrastructure side as well.
Yeah, so I mean, we have really a convergence, right? We finally are at a point where the technology, the hardware, and the artificial intelligence, I mean, we're finally at the point where it's developed far enough that it's really caught up. So, what Moore's law is every 18 months, but we're finally at an incredible situation. So and the other thing that's really happened, I mean, look at as we talked about, Kyle, many times, look at this digital transformation. Look at MacBook sales. Look at telephones, cell phones, right? It's crazy. They're through the roof. Because why? Because the difference from before, we did use them for work, but now we have to have them. We have to have the right kind of cameras. We have to look at the microphones, just the mics. I mean, mics are sold out. You can't get a mic. Try to find a reasonable mic. What, Yeti? And it takes a month to 6 weeks to be able to get with a back order. So in terms of technology, this whole digital transformation has driven us an entirely new direction. In terms of the power, that we have, we're just exploring this new world, right? We got the physical world that we had 6 months ago, and we got this virtually transformed world where now business is finally becoming accustomed to it, and technology is what's driving it across the board. So if we look at, 2 years, 3 years from now, we'll have settled into this transformation. And as I said many times, opportunities have been democratized finally, and they hadn't been before. And intellectual capacity is spread around the world. We're now be able to connect these together, and I love it because, as Nicole was mentioning, she's working on the diversity fund for women. I'm working a diversity fund for blacks in Atlanta and Chicago. We're raising $40 million in Atlanta and $100 million in Chicago. I just had a meeting last week with the former mayor of Atlanta, Kasim Reed, and we just, this is the time. So in terms of, quantum computing, in terms of AI, I mean, we're at this exponential growth, and the convergence with areas like artificial, augmented reality, virtual reality, XR, it's here because guess what? In another 2 years, we're going to be in virtual conference rooms for real, right? We're going to have immersive technology. Look at the situation today with schools. Every student, right? Students are being left out because they don't have an internet connection, a computer at home. Seriously. So it's going to force us to think differently. It's going to force the technology to move faster. It's going to force the technology on our notebooks to be able to accomplish things like immersive technology. So kids can be in the classroom again. So I love it. It's driving things like it's never driven them before.
Absolutely. Nicole, I see you shaking your head, and Gary, you're spot on. I mean, we're seeing huge advancements or talk of huge advancements around our everyday electronics, right? Apple making very big waves, or said to be. We'll see when they get released, but nonetheless, in the coming 6 to 9 plus months, we're going to see new chipsets and a huge push towards better processing power. We're already seeing most of our devices tapped out because we are using them more in ways that we never had before, which is going to put a huge strain on everything we're already using, forcing that further convergence. Adrian, I see you shaking your head, but Nicole, before I get to Adrian, I want to come to you. I mean, furthering that comment, but also around AI. I know you have a background in that. So maybe let's start with AI, and then we'll come around for bigger thoughts.
Yeah, just in terms of AI, and I mean, the digital transformation is astounding, right? We're just rocketing into the future out of necessity, great necessity. And, one area where that's showing up pretty significantly is in health tech, right? Where, telemedicine has never, it had to be forced into, its evolution. And so, the data and, digital transformation in the health tech area is super mind-blowing. But one of the things that I've seen firsthand is a client of mine on my consultancy, NDS Cognitive Labs. And to your point, Gary, they're an international company. They're in Mexico. They're based out of Mexico. So they have conversational AI. So they have chatbots and whatnot for very, very large banks and retail organizations. And their bilingual chatbots, Spanish and English language chatbots, have just been hit on, right? And so with banks, the first point of contact with a customer is this chatbot, and it's astounding the questions that are starting to be asked of the chatbots, and the capacity for learning with these chatbots is amazing. And so, for example, with one global bank, they went from having 600,000 sessions to over 1 million, and they had to scale, and really incredible scaling and learnings have to happen real time when situations like this are happening in the world. So sorry about my coworker is excited.
It's all right. It's an exciting conversation to add on. And Adrian, I see you unmuting, so I'll come to you, and then Gary, let's come back to you if that's okay. So Adrian, go ahead to further that point around AI.
I wanted to ask if the dog is a robot or if it's for real.
He's very real.
It's a conversation AI. It's a robotic AI. I love it. Gary, go ahead, Nicole. Sorry.
No, he can get me out of a meeting though. It's a good excuse sometimes, or at least to mute.
There you go. Oh, I've got to go. My AI robotic but real dog is calling. I need to go. I love it. Gary, to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say, I just mentioned Apple, right? Apple just this second announced they hit $2 trillion in market value.
I just got the alert as well. $2 trillion.
I mean, this is where we are because we are forced now. I love this democratization of the opportunity. I love to see. I'm on the phone every single day. This morning I was on the phone with Hong Kong, Dubai. I mean, literally, it's really changing things a lot. And Kyle, by the way, this show really helps because I'm getting a lot of feedback from around the world about your show being able to spread the message. It's phenomenal. This is what the future is all about.
All the credit goes to Elena and to the entire LA Token team. We're just the talking heads. But no, thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And to those that are listening, thank you for continuing to send those comments and love around to all of us. We do appreciate it. Adrian, to you, what are your general thoughts and what are you seeing currently just kind of happening in this space? I know we saw pre-show some of the fun electronics that you're working on, so would love to hear your thoughts on where things are.
Yeah, I just published like a few days ago in a magazine called Corporate Investment Times. It's like a Forbes magazine for new asset classes. An article about one of the hottest subjects of 2020, if quantum computing will kill blockchain or not. And I don't want to take the discussion into crypto and other things. I just want to keep it safe into the blockchain space. So, because blockchain anyway is not only related to crypto, it's related to business and everything else. And nobody knows exactly where the development of quantum computers will be pushed, because all the big tech companies with huge budgets like Google, Apple, and other big companies, they want to reach somehow the supremacy in this respect of quantum computing. What is sure until now is that it may affect the security of blockchain. And this can be a very, very dangerous thing, because on blockchain, and this comes time and time again, the issue about the security of blockchain, because everybody talks about it, but very few people know what security means on blockchain, how this can be assured. And even if blockchain is a 10 years old technology, still these things are like an open loop. All the time we are coming back to it, and we are running in circles. And let's say this is my hottest subject of the day, to go as deep as possible into it, and maybe to also learn more about it and to update my knowledge on it.
I love it. I mean, there's so much, Gary, and I'm coming to you. There's so much in the idea of quantum computing that will challenge a lot of what we know and what we think. I mean, blockchain is a great example when it comes to just not only the security, but also just general processing power. When you throw that into the idea of, and I'll respect your similar hold up here, is, when you look at just the processing power around mining, you look at the processing power around compute and what that can bring in general, just changes the game. Gary, to you.
Yeah, I mean, just to put in perspective, because people talk about quantum computing, but they don't necessarily, the audience may not necessarily the power of it. So let's put it in a little bit of perspective. In October of last year, Google used their quantum computer to be able to solve a problem that they did solve in 200 seconds. It would have taken the largest supercomputer available today 10,000 years to solve that problem. The quantum computer is based on Nevin's law. Nevin's law states that literally it's double exponential rate. So we're talking about incredible ability to solve the problems. And look at Kyle's, we've talked about many times, the massive amount of data that we have around us and the massive amount of data that needs to process. And you know, I know from my side is we did a Google-like search for the personal cloud, which I've talked about several times, but the amount of information we each have in our personal cloud is about 300,000 items. The entire web in 1996 with 257,000, that number doubles every year. In 5 years with the Internet of Things, you'll have 10 million items in your own personal cloud. Think about it. How many times do you lose things yourself? It's crazy, right? And so, I mean, where's the file? I know the file exists, but I can't have it. Is it in Slack? Is it in Messenger? Is it WhatsApp? Is it LinkedIn? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. So we are in a state, as I said, Alvin Toffler suggested in Future Shock, infobesity. And that's where we are today. And we've got to solve these problems. And quantum computer, you're right. There's always dangers when you have AI and quantum computers, but let's focus on the positive. We need it to be able to help our lives and live better.
Yeah, and also tighten certain things, right? Going back to Adrian's point around security, it's not a bad thing in terms of security in some cases. It's also a very positive thing of what it can bring around security. And Nicole, before I get back to Adrian on that, because those were very good points, but I want to come to you and get your thoughts and opinion on what you're seeing happening in general, you know, outside of AI, around, you know, computers, both hardware, software, and that infrastructure layer around electronics. You know, what are you seeing as kind of the current state of things as we are here in 2020?
Well, I mean, we all have to factor in the fact that we're in this global pandemic, right? And that's really changing everything in how we approach our work day to day. It's changing everything in terms of how, you know, we're go to market, bringing things out into the world. So it's just, you know, it's and not to already jump to that topic, but the pivots are really, I think, what's most important right now is being able to pivot to serve the needs of your customer base, given all that's going on in the world. So, you know, one is for a bank and AI chatbot, you know, another is actually a company that we're looking at investing in, and we're in late stage. So we'll very likely invest in this company, but they've been doing analytics in AI in and around healthcare for some time. And now there's this enormous opportunity to take those insights and actually apply them to business risk, and that can help reduce cost for people in healthcare. So this is now a great opportunity for public health, for pulling costs, reducing costs, you know, boosting, you know, revenue for the right types of organizations, what have you. And so, you know, it's just pivoting to make sure that what we're doing today with our technology is truly relevant and is really serving people. It's not just, you know, technology for technology's sake. It's helping people to be safer in their day because they can, you know, leverage different technologies. It's helping to solve some of the greater challenges that we're facing as humanity right now. So I think that's what's important, is being a conscious organization to understanding and listening to what the market needs are right now and stepping up to serve those.
You're spot on. I mean, we've had our days of trials, and every technology comes in waves and is tested and trialed. but then it needs to be applied, and it needs to be applied not just to a business, but also to a use case. And there's so much, as we've talked about on other episodes here of VCTV, so much of where this technology can be applied for all things, not again just business, but also for good and helping to solve some of the very bigger problems that we're starting to face as well. And so, Nicole, you bring up a great point. And with that, and transitioning into pivots, but also just opportunities. I mean, where are the opportunities that people should be focusing in? And we bring up quantum, but to Gary's point, quantum is a very big word, and not just in its spelling, as it's not that big, but in terms of what it means, its definition, it just touches so much. But where are the opportunities that investors and entrepreneurs should be paying attention to when it comes to these three areas? Again, that the computer, the software, and the electronics. So the hardware, the software, the infrastructure, the guts. Where should both sides be paying attention to right now? Where are those opportunities? Gary, we'll start with you. I saw you on mute.
Hey, yeah. So I'm actually writing an article right now for Forbes, and the thing that we haven't talked about a lot is that it's one thing about the AI, and with EVA we've got 19 patents, et cetera. But it's the transportability of the AI models, and think about it. So if I'm doing manufacturing, I can use that same model, those same optimization algorithms that someone supervised AI for health tech. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So the companies that are really smart, and they're starting to emerge today. I just talked to a former IBM fellow that's got one that's formed yesterday, right? Formed some time ago, but yesterday we had a conversation. Think about it. Those models are highly, highly efficient and can be applied. We did it with EVA. We did a Google-like search, and as I said, for the personal cloud, but now we're doing it for remote workforce management. So that's where the jewels are. Don't think about this as one-offs. Think about the transportability of the models. And that's where it's going to be incredible opportunities for the future. And we need to focus on it. So you're right about the horsepower. It's going to be needed because guess what? The data is going to be coming in the pipe, and we got to be able to make sense of that data coming out. So this is the time. So if you want to invest, look at companies that are looking at transportable AI models, because it's going to be like a factory being able to churn them up. It's going to be the Henry Ford approach to the new electricity.
I like what you did there. Yeah, I've been waiting for that. I like that. That is perfect. And I mean, I couldn't agree more to everyone's point. And Adrian, I'm coming to you next on this before Nicole I mean, there's just so much happening, right? When the thing I'll jump in and say to everyone having some experience in this as well is hardware. If you're looking at investing in any of these areas around the hardware, remember a few things. One, it's a very, very long game. Two, it's capital intensive. And three, that supply chain matters more than anyone realizes, both yourself as the investor and you, the entrepreneur. So do as much as you possibly can to be agile. And I don't mean that in some of its typical sense. I mean that in just tactical. Know where you can start, have backup plans, go into black box manufacturing, look at doing hyper localization, prepare for every scenario, and not just because of what's happened here in 2020, but just in general. I can't stress that enough. Having gone through this myself, supply chains, it's capital intensive and it's a long journey. It's a very, very long journey, but nonetheless, you can survive. For those that also don't know, Silicon Valley, which we all tend to forget, that's actually where the roots came from. The whole name, Silicon Valley. Guess what? It all came from infrastructure, microprocessors, okay? If you don't know the history, I won't recap it here for you today, but that's how Silicon Valley got its start and why Silicon Valley became partly became the epicenter of innovation for so many years. And now we're seeing that happen everywhere. But again, it's a long, long game. Adrian, to you, what are you seeing as those pivots, those opportunity areas for, again, those investing or that may be looking to be building in this space?
I would like to start with an association between what we know and what we don't know. This is how we adults learn. I saw yesterday on a History Channel, it was a show named um, Built in a Day or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it was about the Jack Daniels whiskey and the way that it's produced in only one factory in Tennessee. So looking at that show, and they presented all the elements making this whiskey, all the procedures, all the specialized people testing, preparing charcoals and everything. The conclusion was that is almost impossible to copy that formula. So today I see in hardware, because I'm approached on a weekly basis by factories in Asia offering the opportunity to create prototypes or small series or samples with just few thousands of dollars. And I believe that is something never seen before. So the entry barrier is pretty low. And while the majority of focus is on software, I believe that there is a low-hanging fruit in starting something on hardware. What happens during this period is that so many people are changing their habits, and as we've talked in the past, if you create an app, is a huge achievement if you gain a place on the desktop of on the screen of a phone or of a tablet, and it's harder and harder. But why not inventing new devices? If the habits of people are changing, if you build something around people's needs, and this is the future of the companies, to to be laser focused on what people want, what your client want, and build everything around them. And you can do software, you can do hardware, and it seems that the barrier is lower than ever. And this is something I'm seeing. And a very important element is just one of my statements. I want to be as creative as possible, so not being able to be replaced by a robot. So if you build something, ideally you need to get out from the commodity space. So to be like Jack Daniels, like impossible to be copied. Of course, there are other whiskeys, other brands will be, but um, like Jake Daniels, impossible to be copied, to have your own market, something like that, to go out from the commodity space. And there is another concept is last year I've heard about it, the purple ocean. Before that, we spoke about red ocean, where is everybody fighting for $1 for a lower price, and everything is commoditized. And blue ocean, when you build like a new market or a really new opportunity. But I see so many projects, very successful ones, built on purple oceans. And this is a concept I think day in and day out. And this started to happen last year, by this time last year. So I see also this opportunity in building projects on purple oceans.
I love the concept purple oceans, but I think really the better reference is the Jack Daniels one. To be honest with you, it's a great reference, and not just because
right?
Yeah, not just because it's whiskey, but I mean, nonetheless, it does really provide a great picture of building a true moat, right? A company that built from the ground up, specialized, really focused on their craft, fine-tuned it, and put a moat around the rest of the industry, where they have continued to survive and thrive for many of years. through all kinds of ups and downs, which I know Nicole, with her background can definitely attest to. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. Is get away from being a commodities, right? From a consumer side, people do change habits so quickly. So if you're getting into that space, get ready for that roller coaster. Either you're super niche and you're in that spot and you can rock and roll, or it's going to be a very tough roller coaster, and a very painful one. On the other side, if you're focused more around enterprise, and this is what we're seeing with some of the big moves happening right now, is there's a lot of room for you, a lot of room, and a lot of opportunity to not really be a commodity, but really shine bright. And Nicole, I want to leave it to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. A couple of things came up. Adrian, thank you for the Jack Daniels analogy as well. I actually relate to that. Well, I relate to that. I actually have a vineyard and a wine brand called Media Luna. I have a small vineyard in Argentina. And so wine sales, that whole world has changed very dramatically, right? Given these days. And so we're doing creative things, like we're sending out bottles and doing tastings together, where we're really talking through that tasting. And I will tell you, it's super interesting because people are really getting into it, and it's almost exponentially more intimate because I'm not competing with noise and a big loud space. So I'll do a winemaker's talk and people just really get into the detail. And so it's actually, during these times and having these remote interactions with people, it can be altered to be very very connected and productive experience. And I think, kind of to your point, Gary, the transportability of models, I think that's critical. Is we have to look at, just going back to the conversational AI example, how is conversational AI applied to different industries where it can be really helpful during these times, in HR, and any place where people are asking a lot of consistent questions and they need a very fast and accurate response. We can turn to these models. I've even seen it applied to manufacturing and tracking items, such that there's really strong communication in and around where these items are in the world, and even that applied to electronics, consumer electronics, because that's we've got to really accurately trace things and whatnot. So yeah, it's in the end, I go back to the fact that it's so important to truly listen to your constituents, to your market, to understand what their needs are. And what we've been doing in my my consulting firm is a lot of consumer, both secondary and primary research, B2B, B2C, to really listen to the changed models and needs of the market. And for startups out there, it doesn't have to be really an expensive thing to do. We completely adapted. Marketing tech has gone through a major upheaval, right, to reach audiences and whatnot during this time. So, we did a lot of research via Zoom and really thoughtful programs and just got great insights. So I encourage all the startups out there to really listen to their markets, to do some research, to make sure what you're bringing to your audiences is really thoughtful and targeted.
And even at the enterprise level, I'll just add on to that. That's not just something for those that are building in consumer. I mean, even building infrastructure, building at the enterprise, it's not something to shy away from. To Nicole's point, is the enterprise, while maybe a little bit slower of a sales process and integration, same with infrastructure, it's something you can't get away from. you do need to listen. I mean, enterprises will provide you a lot of insights that will help guide the direction of your product. And you need to understand where the filter is. But to Nicole's point, I mean, listen to that feedback and figure out how to rapidly adapt. I mean, we're seeing that at the infrastructure level right now, as Gary touched on earlier around Apple. And just using this as just a singular example. Or if you look at NVIDIA, you can look at several of the microprocessor and chip companies. A lot of them have listened. Some have not. And those who have not, you're seeing that very loudly right now. Those who have are seeing the demand we're putting on our devices at all levels as consumers. And also to Adrian's point, when he mentioned blockchain earlier, looking on the enterprise side, looking at those infrastructures, where are things going in the near future? Because we're going to need that's improved, that faster, that's more secure, that's scalable infrastructure to take on what we're building for today, right? There's a lot of things that have been tested. Some have worked, some have not. We won't get into all those. We joked about some of them last week. We won't go any further, but nonetheless, those things are being tested. These are long journeys, long bets. You need to prepare for the next 10 to 15 years. As we're talking a little later today about gaming and the future of gaming and esports and entertainment, think about the devices you use today and what you used a year ago to what you used 5 years ago, and how those handled just from a gaming perspective and how those have dramatically changed. Think about what's to come in the next 5 years, what's to come in the next 10 years. These are just small little things to think about because they are possible both as investors and entrepreneurs to build and invest into, but you have to think future forward. You have to listen to your customers, what they demand. May not be coming from our mouth saying, hey, we want feature X, we need more processing power of Y over here, but you need to look at what the application is. How are they being used? Where is it being applied? What's the stress test that's being put on these things to understand where to start positioning yourself for the future? And again, we're talking gaming later today. I cannot stress this enough. Just from that industry alone, most devices, it's just, it's a tough world. And I'll add this before I come to Nicole, look at laptops, to Gary's point. Laptops are sold out. Nintendo Switches are sold out everywhere. But coming back to laptops, most laptops today start at 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, okay? 8 to 16 gigs of memory. Think about that in comparison for those who have been on this journey of technology for some time, how that has changed just in the last 18 months and why we now need or see the need for that type of capacity. As our software is getting more intensive and more draining on the compute side, it's also what we're doing and how we're doing it and how long we're using these devices. So something to be mindful of. Sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
No, I'm good. You covered a lot of really great topics there. I think, one of the things you said about, listening and doing market research, no question, we're doing it B2B, and that's really important. But also what's come about is how critical it is to look at growth, look at markets in community, because it's hard, it's more difficult than ever to go one-to-one. So we have to look at growth. We have to look at market insights in communities, and that's how we successfully raised our fund. It was via an established community, right? We had 13,000 women who are a part of a greater organization, and we could reach out one-on-one to those who we thought would be interested in this fund. And I'm just finding this for the companies that I'm working with and advising, that, those markets are already built in. They already trust. You have an understanding of what their needs are. And so that's the way to go out, to understand, what's needed in the marketplace, and how to, amplify and reach your audiences much more efficiently.
Absolutely. As we come to the lightning round, get everyone's closing thoughts here, I'll just add on to that one more piece is to what Adrian had mentioned on the consumer side and consumer devices. we've seen kind of a mixed bag around investments, specifically over the past couple of years. We saw a lot in about 5-7 years ago, and then from that, with crowdfunding and some of the ups and downs and the losses and a few of the wins, we've seen a little bit of a shying away from that. But when it comes to infrastructure and when it comes to the enterprise, we're actually starting to see an uptick of that. If you're thinking around, again, infrastructure, thinking about sensors, you're thinking about the software. We've talked about AI, we've talked about NLP, so natural language processing. We've talked about machine learning. We've talked about so many of these core pieces that sit in between that hardware and that infrastructure that we've been talking about today. There is a lot of investment opportunity and a lot of investment going into that. So if you're in that area, don't feel like you're alone. As investors, there's plenty of us that are looking at that and be happy to talk further. Entrepreneurs, guess what? There are investors out there. It's not your everyday. Most are still focused on consumer applications if you look at the data, but there are still plenty out there. So do not hesitate to reach out, not just to this quorum, but also to many others as well, as Nicole said. And always do your research. There's plenty out there. All right, guys, we are at time. We're here at the lightning round. So I'd love to come and get each of your closing thoughts and where everyone can find you as well as we come to wrap. So Adrian, I'm going to start with you. We've kind of put you in the middle there. So I'm going to come to start with you on this one. What else are you seeing? Any closing thoughts that you have or advice for those that are building? And then where can everyone find you online?
Again, thank you very much for having me here, and I will contribute as much possible to all the future shows where I'm invited and I can bring some value. The best way to find me is on LinkedIn, search for Adrian Niculescu, and I will always answer there. I'm thinking a lot at the fact that the school is a new year for schools and kindergartens, and universities, of course, is opening over the next few days and weeks. And I don't think that the world knows exactly what will happen. And I see a huge opportunity here in using artificial intelligence, in using virtual reality to recreate at home the atmosphere from the classrooms. Because both my daughters, the big ones, because there are 3 now, from kindergarten and school, they did Zoom, but they were not happy with Zoom. And it was a big difference between the atmosphere in class and the atmosphere here on Zoom. And I see a huge space of opportunity in disrupting this space. So if people will, if children will do it at home, it may happen. Nobody knows exactly what COVID and other potential pandemics will offer for us in the future. But I don't see this problem solved. There is the presence in classrooms, and at home things are very, very different. Mm-hmm. And from the usability, from all these aspects, I don't see this problem solved. And I don't know how I will handle the next year with my daughters. I really don't know. And I don't have a complex solution for that. I don't know.
It's going to be an experience for many. Yeah. And hopefully we won't have another laptop shortage, even though we currently are in one. We're also still in a webcam shortage. So back to our conversation around these types of devices, there's a lot of opportunity to be had, and a lot from the infrastructure side or software side, as Adrian's mentioning. Gary, to you, any closing thoughts, advice, and where can everyone find you online? Thank you, Adrian.
Thanks, Kyle. This presents a very, very interesting opportunity for all the startups and all companies out there to be able to use technology to get closer to the customers, to get closer to employees, to get closer to partners. This is a unique opportunity. So startups that are out there, look at AI technologies, look at VR, AR, look at data analysis, look at technologies that are going to be able to get us closer together, because we're here in this environment for some time, for the foreseeable future. I remember 5 years ago when I first started on Zoom, my friend said it was crazy. Why would you use Zoom? You got Skype, you got Google, and here we are, right? 300 million daily active users later. So use those technologies, stay positive, look at the glass as being half full, and visualize where you want to go. It's critically important today. I mean, we need to build those relationships on shows just like this, Kyle. It's a great venue. So tune in, get the knowledge, and go out. This is an opportunity also to connect with investors. Use your LinkedIn wisely. Go out, talk to people. They're much more willing today to talk to. I actually connected with the CEO of Intel on LinkedIn. I mean, it's unbelievable how you can get to people today. So go out and do it. You know, stay positive and get shit done. So
Absolutely.
you can reach me, Gary Fowler, LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk. I'm always around, and let's share ideas. Thank you.
Absolutely. We had an episode recently this week around pitching and fundraising over social media. Shameless plug, but also very true point is, as Gary's mentioned, we're all available more than we ever have been and more connected. Use those social media outlets wisely. And with that, I'll add the asterisk. Wisely, meaning do your research, figure out where these investors may be active, and also look at the content that they're posting and make sure that when you do connect with them, you're looking to build a relationship, not just pitch them. And that if you are pitching or building that relationship, the conversation is aligned to what they are focused and what they're talking about and or investing in as well. So just a little bit of tidbit from that episode. Nicole, close us out. Any closing thoughts? And then where can everyone find you as well?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Kyle. And thanks again, everyone, for the conversation today, Gary, Adrian, Kyle, and for having me on VCTV and LA Token. Yeah, I mean, I guess the closing thought is everything has changed, right? There's no new normal. It's the next normal. And so as entrepreneurs, as investors, as people, we are being called upon to be more resilient than we ever have in our lives. And so that resilience needs to play out in your decisions related to your businesses. And, that's just kind of, what I want to stress is, turn to each other, turn to community for that resilience. And people can find me. My firm is Outfront Solutions, so you can find me at Outfront Solutions. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and I ask that you do a couple things. One is mention that maybe you saw me here. That gives me a clue as to where we saw each other because I speak every week. And also know that I really care about technology and AI. I care about the cannabis industry. That's another industry in which I work. And I also really care about being in support of women and specifically women of color. So if you have something related to those areas, I love to engage in conversation. And let's keep this conversation going and treat it as such. So thanks again.
Absolutely. And thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and insights. And again, congratulations, Nicole, to you and to the entire team for raising that fund and looking forward to hearing more about the deployment of that. And so for those in our audience also, thank you for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, click subscribe. Also, make sure to give us that thumbs up as well. And please do reach out. Thank you, Gary. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love feedback on how we can improve the show, new topics. And again, if you'd like to be on as an investor to share your thoughts and insights, or as an entrepreneur, if you'd like to take the stage and have the chance to pitch us as investors or our entire live audience, as well. And some of the things that were mentioned today, from Nicole's fund to Gary's upcoming article to Adrian's top secret article that he mentioned as well that he just released, I'll do my best to grab those links and drop them in the show notes for everyone afterwards. So do stay tuned to that. If you can't find them on the show notes, check out my LinkedIn at Kyle Ellicott or Elena's as well, along with the LA Token. You'll be able to find them on there as well. Last but not least, a big thank you to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible every day. They do Elena and the team do a ton of work backstage, And we don't always get to see it, but they do bring us all together and make this possible. Even though we're using Zoom as our software, there's a lot of infrastructure behind this that makes it all possible. That being said, I am Kyle Lecott, your host. Guest, thank you so very much. We'll see you all very soon. To your audience, we'll be back here in just a little bit after a short break to take this conversation one step further. Take those electronics that we're talking about, put a little bit more strain on them, and see how that's going to affect the next upcoming world around gaming, esports, and entertainment. I'm Kyle Lecott, your host. You can find me online at Kyle Lecott. And with that, check out all of our investors. We'll be back here shortly with more VCTV for you.